Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you are listening to the VMware Community's Roundtable Podcast. This is podcast number 629. My name is Eric Nilsson, and I don't have a co-host again yet today. Some of us still are sick. Some of us are traveling around the globe, where I am in Lisbon. Today is Wednesday, December 7th, 2022. On the show today, we're going to be talking about MultiCloud. MultiCloud has been heating up throughout the year. If you listen to Raghu or anybody else, everybody's talking about MultiCloud, and we've had a pretty interesting event yesterday. So we're going to be talking to Dave Wolpert, and Chris McClanahan are here today to talk about MultiCloud. But as always, before we get into the topic at hand, we'll talk a little bit about the news. So first off, reminders. Corey Romero is running the vExpert apps, and he says they're still open, so you guys can get your vExpert apps in, and that would be great if you could do that, because those will close sometime in early January. So don't forget to get your vExperts app in. If you think you've done enough to qualify for vExperts, definitely talk to a vExpert Pro in your region to figure out how to make a good application and get those in. The time is ticking on those. You do have over the holiday to get those in. So look at that. In the news, we are in Lisbon. The VMUG leadership event kicked off. It hasn't happened since 2019. So we've invited, I think, 100 plus VMUG leaders who run VMUG chapter meetings. I think we have 180 VMUG chapter meetings. And we've got the leaderships all here right now in Lisbon, Portugal. And it's been a great event. We've had it for 3 days and lots of conversation about what makes a good or a great VMUG meeting. Got to say thank you to all the VMUG leaderships who run VMUG meetings. A lot of great people, do a lot of hard work, run the events, finance the events, sell to partners for sponsorship. Just everybody working hard on that. And so we've had a great 3 days here in Lisbon talking about everything we're going to be trying to do in 2024. And I got to say, membership is up. So is attendance to your local VMUG meetings. And we are going to be doing some really innovative, cool things in 2024 for VMUG. So make sure that you reach out to your local chapter and get hooked up and be prepared for a fun 2024. Should be good, and has been a great event here in Lisbon for the last 3 days. Always fun to be back in Europe. With that, I think I will just get into our guests and let our guests talk a little bit about who they are. So let's first go to Dave Wolpert. Dave, I hope you're doing well. And as always, on the VMware Community Podcast, we always start with who are you? How long have you been in IT? You got a couple minutes here to tell us about your career arc and what you do at VMware.
Yeah, Eric, thank you. It's great to join you. So I'm in Austin, Texas. I joined VMware about 14 months ago, coming from IBM. And prior to IBM, I had sort of a long list of different roles, mostly within marketing and business development with all kinds of tech companies, very big ones, very small ones, and a lot of them somewhere in between, most of which were software, some of which were hardware, and a few of which were service providers. So I've been doing this for about 25 years, so I've been sort of around the block. At VMware, I'm a senior manager of solutions marketing, which is a combination of product marketing and content marketing. And I'm in the cross-cloud solutions group. So we can talk a bit about that a little later, but VMware Cross-Cloud Services is the brand name for our portfolio of multi-cloud services to help organizations build, run, manage, and secure applications across multiple clouds. So that's my short story.
Nice story. I got a couple things there. One, I still have white shirts on from my days at Boca Raton at IBM, right? Like
Yeah.
still got a ThinkPad somewhere that, people think ThinkPad is like a computer, but for longtime IBMers, it's just a little brown pad that has Think across it that you put in your white front shirt pocket. I never used the pocket protectors, but I did put pens and always, a ThinkPad in my breast pocket. And so now I can't lose that. Right. So great to have you on there here, and hopefully you're in marketing. Always got to do a shout out to marketing. I hope you still have some brain cells left, right? Because the longer you stay in marketing.
I think I have all of them, but thank you.
I'm gonna say, wait, I was in marketing for a little bit too, so hold on.
They do. Research says they do grow back, so you can come out if you need to. Chris McClanahan, welcome to the show. I'll do the same thing for you. Tell us a little about yourself, what your career arc is. How did you get here?
Yeah, sure. So funny, I was a DJ until I was 18. And then I actually got my first, I guess you would call it IT job as on the help desk in the financial industry, and worked my way through that company for about 12 years, up to a principal architect. And I went through 3 different bank mergers. And I thought, man, you know what I don't ever want to do again? A bank merger. And so I was working heavily with VMware at the time, even back at the GSX stage. And so they actually offered me a job back in 2009. And so I've been here for roughly 12 years. I took a 1-year hiatus to go to a startup that was all building containers and first Kubernetes things, and it got bought. I still have to work, so I did not make millions of dollars, and so VMware graciously welcomed me back, and now I was in marketing for a bit, but now I lead. I'm a director of product management for Aria Hub and Graph, which is going to be a big topic of the conversation here. So that's kind of where I came from. I've got a vast career of many different things, but about 27 plus years in IT as a whole right now.
Yeah, when I left IBM decided I worked in Boca Raton in South Florida, and they decided to move it up to North Carolina and Austin, Texas. They decided to be out of the southern part of Florida, and I had so much family there that I was like, I'm not moving. So I left, and then I kind of went, what am I going to do? And I got SCO Unix, and I started playing with SCO Unix, and I said, you know what? There's administration jobs in South Florida. I can get one of these because they service Latin America. So I ended up working at a Latin American company, doing IT, right, which was not exactly what I went to college for, but I loved it so much that eventually you just make a career out of it, and here we all are over time, right?
Absolutely.
And then drifting in and out of marketing, managing my brain cell population is, kind of what I try to do here from that time to time. So MultiCloud's red hot, right? Like, MultiCloud is red hot in the topics and conversations. First, everybody's like, they didn't get it. The word on the street is like VMware's making up another category again, right? But now, as cloud services have taken off, it has been, why don't you guys give us a little bit of an overview and talk about the current state of MultiCloud? And I don't know if Dave or Christian want to go first. Who wants to go?
I'll kick it off. But you're exactly right. MultiCloud is absolutely exploding, and we call it the de facto operating system sort of for big organizations worldwide. And VMware does its own research of current and prospective customers. Several other organizations are doing similar research, and we're all finding the same thing, which is that in 2022, somewhere between 75% roughly and 90% of organizations are multi-cloud. And it doesn't matter if they're, again, small, medium, or large, or really any industry, anywhere in the world, it's the majority by far. And the rate of acceleration, the rate of adoption is increasing. And just to be clear, when we say multi-cloud, VMware defines that as the use of 2 or more clouds. Typically, that means public clouds, the hyperscalers, but it could also mean private clouds. So, 2 or more, and most organizations are now doing 3, some are doing 4, and it just continues to grow. So, for us at VMware, we had to sort of skate to where the puck was going, which is more and more customer adoption of multi-cloud. and they're still using, private cloud or other on-prem infrastructure. That's not going away. It's just that the trend is definitely moving toward multi-cloud. So you're seeing more and more of our products evolve in that direction.
Yeah, and I'll agree and jump in if that's okay. I talk to a lot of customers and I call it the N factor, and it's the N plus, right? Most of them, barring aside the I was born in public cloud scenario, most of our customers are an N plus something. And when I say N, they started with an on-premises environment. And then they started dabbling in colos, and then it kind of went into, oh, we've got this hybrid VMware Cloud approach with VMware Cloud on AWS, and we've got it in all of the public cloud vendors now. And then it became, hey, wait a minute, I've got these lines of businesses that are already just doing native services in these different clouds, and every one of these public clouds has a niche thing. Google does really good analytics. AWS started as the first premier cloud, and then everybody, Azure came swooping in as well. And what we found is a lot of our customers didn't know they had 3 public clouds in their environment until they really started investigating. And then the need came to, okay, well, we've got to manage this. And there's so many factors to managing this multi-cloud environment that you just, it's almost a learn by fire kind of situation for a lot of our customers. And this is where we're trying to help, right? And that's, Dave said it great on defining what we consider multi-cloud. And it's an N plus N factor for most of our customers at this point.
Yeah, I heard Joe Bagley here, talking to VMUG leadership, and he talked about a term that I hadn't really heard yet, so new for me, which is software supply chain issues, right? So when you get into multi-cloud and you have microservices, you're starting to build your apps with dependencies on all these different services. And if any one of these services goes down, right, then all of a sudden your app stops working. And even if some customers had migrated workloads back into their own data center for cost reasons, security reasons, or whatever, tracking where you had dependencies, right, became problematic for customers because they thought they've moved the workloads over, but then they've had dependencies in the apps themselves. And just getting a handle on security issues around that, billing on that, all that. It's like you could hear Joe Bagley talk about the fact that, he's talking to customers and they're struggling through some of these problems as they rushed into, their cloud environments, and then they got urban sprawl, right, very quickly, and now they're like, what do we do here, right? And and so it is interesting, all of these problems that I listened to Joe talking about it. And software supply chain, I when he said it, I'm like, there's no such thing as software supply chain. But when you get into the complexities of cloud, and let alone your organization having multi-cloud, I can see where that could be a problem.
Well, we look at multi-cloud as sort of a double-edged sword that has some huge advantages for companies, and there are some challenges. I mean, the huge advantage, as Chris was alluding to, is there's specific services on some of the hyperscalers that are really good for certain types of workloads. And so you can pick and choose the best provider for what you're trying to build, which is wonderful. So it gives companies agility and flexibility, and they can get all kinds of great business outcomes by choosing the right cloud for the right workload. The flip side is what I call the silo effect, which is that each one of these clouds has its own stack for cloud management, its own stack for security and other operational aspects of running a cloud. And so each of those silos only sees what's in its own silo. And so if you're a company and you're trying to figure out, how do I manage this entire cloud estate? How do I, for example, with security, how do I ensure that I have a consistent security policy applied to all my clouds? Or how do I make decisions? And this is where the VM Aria portfolio comes into play. How do I make decisions around what workload do I put on what cloud from a cost or performance or even security basis? You need to have a visibility, and you need to have control and a consistent way to work with all of these clouds across these silos. And so Joe's absolutely right. The supply chain is one issue, but I mean, there's so many other complexities just underneath the surface of how do I manage all of this cloud estate as if it were one giant cloud, which I think is the ultimate goal of any of our customers.
And I got to imagine that CIOs look at, guys that are running their infrastructure and look at them and go, you're in charge of this, right? I need IT to be able to manage this. If Log4j comes along, right before Christmas, you better know what your inventories are and how to solve this across all these SaaS services. So you can see where common management and visibility is just got to be key for this.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised to know that, well, maybe you wouldn't be, but that, many of the infrastructure teams that were traditional VMware people aren't the ones managing their public cloud environments in these large companies. But you are starting to see a centralization of skill sets, right? And this part kind of goes to what Dave was saying is we need to be able to shim manageability across all of these public clouds and hyperscalers to really create an operating model that's consistent. So when I set a policy, it's set across the spectrum of the hyperscalers that I'm working within. And the other piece of this that is very interesting that we're seeing a ton of movement towards is this app-centric view. Managing workloads is one thing, right? And knowing, hey, I got this EC2 instance, or I got this Azure VM, and here's the state of it. But when you get all of the different resources and PaaS services and things like that together and the focus of an application, you can really start to see what the effect of the application is, right? And then your lines of business can understand what's going on with their application. So it definitely starts with the observability of the workloads running within these hyperscalers, but it also goes into and now I have to collectively look at, if I were to lose this resource, what is the downstream effect to these microservice applications that are running 30, 40 instances of things, whether they're pods in a Kubernetes cluster or, 20 machines behind a load balancer, right? So it's that app-centric view as well as the observability from the workload view that have to marry each other to give the full visibility of what's going on with the applications.
And before we go too much further, just a note that if you want to go to VMware.com and look, you'll be able to find the links to the broadcast that happened yesterday that we're going to be talking about next. I could give you a URL. Maybe I'll put it in the public chat. If you happen to be on vBarbecue, youtube.com/vBarbecue, a URL link here that's shortened, and you can go look at it there too. But you can also just go to VMware.com and look on the front page below that you'll be able to find that link. Post this here. And so let's transition to, we are doing these briefings, bringing in guests and speakers. Why don't you tell us a little about what the format and, what did we go through yesterday in the briefing? I know that we've had like 400,000 downloads of it just in the last 24 hours. A ton of it is like half of that is organic. People just talk about it, a lot of buzz. Tell us a little bit about what we're doing there.
Yeah, so the VMware MultiCloud briefing is a quarterly online event that VMware first started doing in 2020. And I think I wasn't there at the time, but I think the idea was simply that more and more customers were telling us that multi-cloud was important to them. VMware was responding with products that met that shift in their need. And we thought it was important to have conversations with our current as well as prospective customers, as well as with our partners, with industry analysts, financial analysts, really the entire community, including software vendors who are not directly competitive, but perhaps tangentially competitive or potentially partners with VMware. And the idea back in 2020 was, what if we had a 30-minute or so presentation where we would pull in multiple speakers from within VMware who had different perspectives on multi-cloud, and maybe pull in some other perspectives. It could be a customer, it could be, again, another software vendor, it could be an industry analyst. But let's start bringing in people to talk about multi-cloud and make this an actual event. So the first briefing earlier in 2020 was really just establishing VMware's vision for multi-cloud, where we saw the market today, where we saw the market heading, what our customers were telling us, and how we're responding with products that meet those needs. And I think the mistake maybe we made back then was that we made this a gated event. So people had to actually register to watch this online. And because of that, it greatly limited our audience to, I think, maybe about 50,000 people. We came back a few months later, did another one, and broadened the audience a lot, did a lot more promotion around it. And I think that one got us maybe 900,000 views. So, very commendable. But we were just getting started. And then COVID hit, and we only did one briefing in 2021, but that one we opened up, no gate, a lot more promotion, a lot more production quality. And we brought in Salesforce.com as one of our segment presenters. And I think that had a big draw just by itself. And that briefing got 1 million views. So in 2022, earlier this year, we came back, did our 4th briefing. This one was largely focused around Tanzu. And we had a great customer in Cerner who spoke with us in that briefing. We had a great partner in Snowflake, who, as you know, is a software company that does a lot of what we do in terms of multi-cloud or cross-cloud, but in the context of data, an area where VMware just doesn't play as much. And so they had a very nice complementary story, and I think that had a much bigger draw. That briefing had over 3 million views. We did a second briefing this year in April, where we brought in S&P Global as our customer, along with a partner called DXC Technologies and IDC, the industry analyst. And that too had over 3 million views. And then in July, I sort of got involved being the content producer for that briefing for the first time, which was on security in a multi-cloud world, which was a much bigger sort of topical draw. Every organization is profoundly concerned about security. And we brought in a customer from South America. We brought in a systems integrator partner of ours. We brought in a thought leader from SANS Institute. And that briefing had over 6 million views. So got dramatically better results. This latest briefing is on multi-cloud management and specifically on the new VMware Aria portfolio of multi-cloud management services. We chose to do it on Aria at this time because of the Aria launch, which was just a couple of months ago, and we're seeing enormous traction from that. But with this briefing, which we're now up to something like 600,000, almost 700,000 views already. So it's doing well. This briefing, we took a different approach. We made it much shorter. It's only 24 minutes because we wanted to experiment and see if that would get a lift in engagement. That's me, the marketer, talking. Just because it's easier to watch, the segments are shorter. We have fewer segments, and each one is, I think, just tighter and crisper in terms of messaging.
It is interesting because this throws me back to 2006 when I first came to VMware, and virtualization was kind of at that same point where people were going, yeah, we're running, there's this virtualization and you can have multiple OSs, and everybody was scratching their heads in the IT land. And there were some early adopters, but then as we started bringing, I think my first VMware 2006 in LA, when we started bringing customers in and they were repeating how they were doing it and what their problems were and how they were solving these problems with VMware's software, it became super hot very quickly because all of a sudden it became real. You have customers talking about it, what they're using, how they're doing it, and all of a sudden everybody is starting to realize that, no, this is a real issue. Where I remember watching the multicast, with the first one with Victorio and crew, it was in that same spot. We were talking about a vision, but now when I watched the last couple this year, I was the customers, partners talking about how they're implementing it in production and what benefits they're gaining from it. So I got to say that, along with the amount of views you're getting, you're right. What's actually happening in the industry and our solutions for it with real customers reminds me of the same curve back in the virtualization days.
Absolutely. Real customers and real partners who are helping a lot of our customers implement this, and industry analysts and other thought leaders who are helping our customers plan strategies and figure out how they're going to approach multi-cloud and overcome some of the challenges they're experiencing. So yeah, it's very real. I mean, we're presenting a very real world perspective. These briefings are not meant to be overt advertisements for VMware. It's not just us talking about our products, it's us talking about what we're really seeing in the market and how we're going to address that. So yeah, we're definitely connecting the dots there.
Nice. So without giving, too much away of what was there, maybe we can talk about what you guys talked about anyway. Obviously, Aria. Do you guys want to kind of drill in a little bit on what it covers?
Yeah. Do we take that one, Dave?
Yeah,
I'll jump in. Yeah. So Aria is a family name of services or a portfolio, and don't look at it as just change the name of some things. What we're really doing is changing the way that we're presenting capabilities to our customer base, right? And future customers and things like that. And it's really about, Dave talked earlier about, each of these clouds and even VMware tools have different niche and there's different pools of data. And there's all these places where you can go and see certain aspects about workloads and applications in the environments that you're managing. And what we're doing with Aria is bringing all that together into a common data model and into a platform approach, right? And so the platform is called Aria Hub and Graph. And then all of these services that you're familiar with from a VMware perspective, costing, security, performance, automation tools, and things like that are being brought in as basically data sources into this platform and allowing us to then go and in real time see things that are happening, changing. If somebody goes and change something in one of the hyperscalers, we know about it and then can tell all of the other services that change has happened, whether it's a config change or a load balancer setting has changed, or a scale up, scale down event, and then by those tools then process that change, feed it back into this common data model, and then now the users can access all of that data that we have, both at the hyperscaler data as well as those services from that single source, right? And so at that moment in real time, they can get performance information, they can get cost information, security configuration information, deployment information, and all of this data in their fingertips. And then we're visually presenting this in the hub. So you'll hear things like Aria Hub and Graph, or Aria Hub powered by Aria Graph. The graph is the data model underneath. The hub is visualizing all of these points of data in a very simple to consume, digestible way. So that way you can get that observability that you talked about that our customers are lacking right now, both at the workload level and at the application level, right? And so now, based on who you are in the organization, you might be interested in the cost factor. Well, we're going to bubble up all the cost information, and we actually know that, hey, you're interested in cost because of the behaviors that you're utilizing the platform, and we're going to suggest you probably want to know about this. You want to know about this increase in cost because a service was running over the weekend, or things like that. And based on how you interact with the platform, the platform is going to interact back with you, bubbling up the most relevant information that you have. Again, bringing all of these services that you before would have to have multiple tabs open for, or monitors and things like that, into this central data model, central visualization and observability tool that allows you to take action on the things that are important to run the business. So that's really what we're doing with that Aria portfolio.
And that's interesting because I was at VMware Explore in the US. I was talking to one of the head guys for Starbucks, and he was really excited about the Aria launch, mostly because they want programmatic interfaces to that hub data set so that they can actually write code from that will look at costing. Right. And depending on the cloud costing, they intend to deliver workloads programmatically in real time to different cloud vendors, depending on what they're doing from a cost perspective in real time by every week. So every week they're going to look at what the costs are, aggregate those up, and then they've got algorithms that will actually ship different Kubernetes workloads to different cloud providers based on what they're charging on any given day or week. So
Yeah, and I'll tell you one of the most exciting pieces for me is because I'm a gadget head, I love code, and is that programmatic aspect of it, right? And I do love writing creating the cool visualizations and everything in the hub. But one of the most interesting things over the last two Explore events that we've had is the things that the customers are coming up with that honestly I would have never thought about, right? How can this help a police force, that's doing criminal investigations by giving them better throughput to data and things like that. And one of the MSPs wants to build a complete visualization layer on their own on top of the graph around the energy sector for the country that they're supporting. So there's so many ways that, as you said, from the programmatic perspective, that they can now, because they have all this data in their hands on this data, they can start creating very specific to their needs, visualization and data models, just because they now have all of this data at their fingertips. So it's exciting for me and I think partners and customers as well.
And some of the meat here, Dave, you probably have some comments on this, and I'm not a security expert, but endpoint management, right? Where, you've got multi-clouds and you've got services running, and then I've got data moving from point to point. Like, how do you manage the security aspects of that as well? So I assume that, Aria gets into a little bit of that as well, and our cloud services, our multi-cloud services do that.
I'm sure it does. I could let Chris speak to that a little bit in terms of what Aria does, but I mean, we have an entire other portfolio of security services that, tackle some of those challenges too. So, I mean, I think it just speaks to
Yes.
your point of, VMware, we're trying to build a portfolio of services in different areas like management, like security, like application development with Tanzu, that all of which are complementary. That if you think about all the different things a company is trying to do in these multi-cloud environments, there's a lot, and you got to break it into some pieces, but those pieces have to work together, which is sort of what, one thing I love about Aria. It's sort of the glue in between a lot of this.
Yeah, and then that's exactly it, right? Me from a platform, and I own the platform or product perspective, is making it as easy as possible for all of these services and third-party services to integrate with the data model. So that way they can feed in and out of the hub as well. So you think about some of our security portfolio, we're connecting them in, and then we can go, oh, hey, I've got this inventory, I've got this object, it just changed. What do you know about it? And now we've just added, increased that data model and what returns when somebody needs to access that particular object. So whether it's layer 7 service mesh type port to port security IDS kind of things, or if it's just flow based communication and doing application discovery, right? We're pulling all of that information in from these outlying services, so we can then bring that model and that complete picture of those workloads and applications to the consumer. And it's the reception that we've gotten both internally at VMware and externally with partners. They're just itching to get into that because they benefit as well, right? They get all of the great data to use for their purposes, and we get that data back. And so it's definitely already building an ecosystem, and it's going to be a pretty fantastic tool for our customers.
So getting back to yesterday's live stream, did they have any customer? Did you bring a customer in? Did you bring a partner in? Who were obviously 28 minutes. You're not going to get a lot of time to do everything, but what are the kind of touch points of what people will get to see?
Yeah, so we did bring in a customer for the briefing. It's Johan Murray from a company called Discovery, which is a South African financial services firm. Discovery's been a long time VMware customer. They use quite a broad range of VMware solutions to do different things. But Johan's really excited about Aria. So they are a multi-cloud shop. They have multiple public clouds for various reasons. And Chris mentioned earlier, part of it is they want to choose best in breed services from specific providers. But also they're an international company. And like so many international companies, they have to have clouds. Different clouds for different regions or for different compliance standards and so forth. And so they're managing a pretty large multi-cloud enterprise. And Chris talks about his excitement for Aria to help him do that. And I think, Chris really hit it on the nail that there's a lot that's new in Aria, but, to me personally, Graph is the really important novel piece that really takes it to a new level. And in the briefing, I think, we try to focus on what's truly new, and it's going to help our customers do more things than they ever could before. And Graph, before you can manage something, you have to understand what it is you're trying to manage. You need data, and a picture really helps. And so Aria pulls in data. Aria Graph pulls in data from multiple sources that VMware has hooks into, but it could be third-party data sources as well, and literally paints a picture of it. And in the briefing, Chris does a fantastic demo of Aria Graph and Hub, and shows you sort of in real time what you can model with Graph. And once you can model it, you can manage it. And I think that's a real game changer.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say on that is the graph I always call it the special sauce, underneath the covers there, and it's all about stitching and building relationships and the things that honestly a machine learning and AI system should provide based on that collection of data. In an example of this, we have over 10,000 data points for a single object, right? So a single VM can have 10,000 data points, right? And that's just an overwhelming amount of information for a human to take in. And so a lot of what we're doing behind the scenes in the graph is building the relationships, showing you what is, this thing touches, not just from a communication perspective, but this policy is associated to this, or these keys are associated to this particular instance. And by building that map and stitching all that together, again, you get visibility and the spider web of things, or like to call the blast radius of that workload. And then again, you take those workloads and marry them together into an application, and now you've got complete visibility of that application for your customers.
So up level again a little bit. When we talk multi-cloud, there's obviously Azure, there's obviously AWS, there's IBM, Oracle, Alibaba. Like, how many of these is Aria starting to work with?
All of them. Really, I mean, obviously we're with the big three to begin with, right? There's AWS, no surprise, Azure and Google are the kind of the three beginning clouds. But we're really going off customer demand. Supporting VMware clouds, obviously, too. I don't want to forget that. So on-premises VMware cloud, those three cloud providers. And then, basically we have an open extensibility adapter that anyone can be able to write to. So the community can write to for their own workload managements if they've built something internally, or they want to integrate a system. But then also, building collectors to these other cloud providers is really our goal. We want to support everything. I mean, we will not we'll turn no one away when it comes to collecting data and doing that.
You mentioned VMware Stack, obviously VCF, VMware Cloud Foundation. You're running on-prem. That, of course, that ends up integrating into Aria as well, so that you can visibility to that. And I said, don't worry if it gets slow, guys. I'll ask some stupid questions. And so here's the stupid one. I've been here at the Leadership Summit with a lot of great people. One of the presentations was Edge, right? And what the telcos are doing with Edge and how they're defining that as an extension of cloud as well. Do we see Edge playing into this space as well?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Edge is, again, from my perspective, workloads are workloads, no matter where they run, right? If they're running on the edge, or if they're running in a hyperscaler, or if they're running in your on-premises data center, they have costs, they have security, performance, and they need to be delivered, right? Those are aspects that we bring into the platform, show you from a visibility perspective, and then you can map these things out. In the free tier of Aria Hub, you can see everywhere you have workloads running in the public clouds, right? And so that could be an edge case if it's an edge device, right, or an edge a workload. So again, it's a workload. I want to show it. I want to let you observe it and give you the most information we can possibly give you through the collective data model.
Okay, so Kubernetes, sometimes people, in IT, standard guys will define workloads as VMs, right? When you start talking about Kubernetes, right, you get containers, and then workloads are sitting in containers. They're most likely, we want you to be on vSphere, right, and running on Tanzu. Do you guys get into kind of trying to manage those as workloads as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we're integrating with our Tanzu portfolio, right? Both Tanzu Mission Control, which can manage your fleet of Kubernetes clusters wherever they're running in a multi-cloud space. Obviously, TKG from an on-premises perspective. But the key to that is you're exactly right. You hit the nail on the head. Workload is not defined by a VM. Right, a workload is defined by the service running within that operating model, whether it's a container and running in pods inside of Kubernetes, or it's the Kubernetes cluster itself, right? You've got to be able to drill down through that entire hierarchy to be able to really understand and understand the big picture. If you've got a failing pod in the Kubernetes cluster, you need to understand why, and you need deep introspection to that, right? So, and then how does that map to the other resources you're using? That is so important too, because it's not just things running in containers. It's not just things running in VMs. It's not just things running in PaaS. It's all of it together that is really delivering the application that the businesses are using for revenue.
So this stuff is, again, I get excited, when I come to leadership conference and, they give you a lot of Kool-Aid and you get excited about, all the things. Duncan Epping's there showing you cool stuff. Cormac, I don't know how to get his last name or first name, but he's there. He's showing us cool stuff. Dave, as we go into 2024, what gets you excited for what you're looking at as we move forward with multi-cloud?
Yeah, so we'll definitely do more briefings. We're trying to figure out what the next briefing will be about, but that's a big part of what I personally do at VMware, and I enjoy doing those. But we're also getting more involved, I think, and we'll see more sort of industry participation. So not just VMware, but more and more organizations, whether they're software companies building complementary software services for us, or with us, or for our customers
Yeah.
jointly. We'll see more, I think, industry understanding and acceptance of multi-cloud, both the pros and the cons, and how to address those. We're doing an event actually in January with theCUBE.
I was gonna hit you with that next, going like, I know I don't even know if I'm allowed to say the word super cloud, but like there is that industry participation that's starting to happen, and Cube is pushing the vendors. They got great vendor relationships, and there's interest in all of this becoming just like we built a virtual ecosystem around VMs back in 2006. I'm seeing the same kind of thing happen.
It's definitely happening. Yeah, SuperCloud, theCUBE did a SuperCloud event last year that we participated in, along with I think a dozen other software companies, all doing really innovative things with what we call multi-cloud services. And our Office of the CTO under Kit Colbert also this year released a white paper putting our sort of a stake in the ground around what we now call multi-cloud services as a description of this new category of software services. So when we talk about cross-cloud services, that's really our portfolio brand name, like Aria is a portfolio brand name. But within those portfolios are very discrete services that do specific things. And we now, with multi-cloud services, are trying to put some nomenclature and definition around what are the different services that different software companies offer. And so when you now see the SuperCloud event and the different software vendors participating in that, they can point to and say, yes, I'm the third type of software service or the second type. And so we're getting more definition around it, which I think is important to get our customers to embrace it more. Once they can look at something and say, yeah, I see, what I need is over in this bucket, and that's offered by VMware or offered by these other companies.
Yeah, if you know the history of when VMs took off, it was because we got our storage act together when EMC jumped in, and all of a sudden it became, you had enough ecosystem partners that my solutions I felt comfortable deploying because we had a big enough partner ecosystem to make customers feel comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're openly acknowledging that we don't want to do this alone. It's important to have other companies work with us for complementary solutions. With Aria, it could be as a data source into Aria. It could be we need relationships with more partners to help us advise our customers and deploy all of this. And so, yeah, we need to build a bigger, I don't want to, not necessarily a formal consortium, but we definitely need more industry players aligned along the same themes and goals to help our customers.
Yeah, and customers tend to drive that as well, but it's good to have, the industry event. I can see in a VMware Explorer or a VMworld, I can see why we changed it from VMworld, because it's really, cloud world, or it's and the cloud vendors all coming together and working together, offering customers a rich ecosystem of solutions here. So it's pretty
Absolutely.
right. So Chris, I'll hit you with the same question. What gets you excited about going into 2024, and doing your job?
Yeah, and I think you guys hit the nail on the head. For me, it's all about the ecosystem, right? Building partner relationships, not just with. I don't feel like I have a competitor anymore. I just have a partner in data consumption, data presentation, and how do we give our customers the best opportunity to be successful? And I'm telling you, the amount of excitement from everyone, both customers and partners and tech partners, is what is driving me. And so delivering use cases for the customer is absolutely top of my list. But building that ecosystem of capabilities from tech partner to VMware and the hub and the graph and back is really just number two. And I'm excited about it. I can't wait to really talk about this next year and show all of the things together and like how we're partnering and doing really cool new inventive things because we have all of this data model. That's really is what has got me excited about the next 12 months.
Yeah, I feel like from my perspective, if we have a huge army, like 5 million customers in the community platforms, we have 3,000 vExperts, we're coming up to 3,000. And really, if you don't bring that ecosystem along, you can make great software, you can make great solutions, but if it doesn't fit, right? If it doesn't bring people in their careers along and doesn't fit into your current infrastructure and move it forward, it's a tough thing to sell into the data center, sell into the enterprise, get CIOs involved, because CIOs aren't, they've got 3/4 of their brain taken out now. They're listening to their people. Their job is to listen to their people and then allocate resources from what their people are saying. And so I just see the momentum of this. And, we talk about Dell, we talk about EMC, we talk about now Broadcom. I listen to Raghu and I see us, he's like, you don't have to worry. These are happening. VMware's here. And you listen to Broadcom hearing it and going, oh, right. We see this now. We're putting out letters saying, yes, this is happening. We're excited about it. We're going to invest in it. We're going to keep going with this. And it just reminds me of the days of EMC and Dell and now Broadcom, all understanding that VMware drives, solutions for the next 5 or 10 years of where IT is going. So it's pretty fun and exciting. And congratulations on the volume of people you're getting to come to your events. Before we get into the final wrap up, any other things that you think are worthy talking about from either the event or where you see things going?
Well, I'm going to plug the free tier of Aria Hub. You can go out to VMware's website right now, click on it. It's running in SaaS, so there's nothing for you to install or anything. Basically, you start plumbing in public cloud accounts, and we'll start doing our magic with stitching and inventory and showing you some really cool aspects of like CIS benchmark violations and costing and things like that, and start getting you familiar. And then in your mind will wonder about, man, what if I get all these other data sources in here, the power of everything that I can see. So I'm going to plug that free tier. Go out to the website, check it out, register for it, and I'd love any feedback. So hit me up.
Yeah, and I find that the SaaS nature, I was looking at prices. We ran a Black Friday deal, and you go to look at ESX pricing, and then you'd look at our SaaS pricing, and our SaaS pricing is like a third of what your normal spend would be just to get software to install somewhere. And it, like, at first I go SaaS and I go, oh, I like owning things. I still have CDs, right? Like MP3s, buy them from iTunes. But when you start looking at how easy it is to get started, and then even if you want to go into production and spend money, it's not as much money and is not as much investment. And I have to say that, wow, okay, SaaS is pretty good actually like doing this because it gets me in, and it is a low price endpoint. And then, if it doesn't work out for me, I cancel it. I don't throw a bunch of servers away and deal with, the impact of a heavy investment to get started. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Right.
Yeah.
Nice to have that entry level way in.
Yep.
So, for the experts who are listening to this, you should be going and playing in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of them have already registered because I've reached out to several of them. So I'm excited to see their excitement.
Yeah, and I'll just plug the briefing itself. So if someone can't see the link to it, it is on YouTube. So probably the easiest way to find it is go to YouTube and search for VMware MultiCloud Briefing, and you'll see all of the briefings. This one is just called December 2022. And check it out. It's, I think, a really interesting video. And there's several other multi-cloud briefings if you want to watch other ones as well. You'll find them all on YouTube.
Now, was Vittorio there?
He was in a segment talking to Purnima Padmanabhan, who's the VP and General Manager of the Cloud Business Unit. And they had a great conversation about how Aria connects to cross-cloud services, just in terms of fit. As I mentioned earlier, management can't exist in a vacuum. It's tied into so many other worlds of IT, and so so they talked about the bridge between cross-cloud and Aria specifically. It was a great conversation.
I know we're coming up to the top of the hour, and because we are on youtube.com/vbarbecue, VBARBECUE. If you want to look at what Dave and Chris look like, I know most people listen to this on iTunes. You can go there, give us a like and a follow, and see what their mugs look like. They're pretty handsome guys, I think. And as we leave, we always do a VBarbecue report. So you get to Chris. We'll go with you first. What's your either favorite barbecue to make on the grill or barbecue place you visit?
Well, gosh, St. Louis has so many good barbecue places, but there's a place called Pappy's, and his brother runs a place called Bogart, and they're both good. Pappy does great pulled pork. Bogart's does great ribs. And then for me, I love smoking brisket on my smoker, and I'll stay up for 18 hours to smoke a brisket, so it's nice and juicy. So I love all barbecue for that matter.
So in the brisket land, is it because you like creating the brisket, or is it when you eat the brisket? I'm starting to think it's more the creation process.
Yeah, to be honest, it is. I always freeze a lot and make chili, and things like that. My wife uses the what we don't eat for different recipes, so she loves it for that reason. I think I like the process just as much as the eating it.
All right, Dave, you're up.
Yeah, so I'm in Austin, so we love
Austin doesn't have any barbecue.
Yeah, it's on the barbecue. I'm more of a fatty brisket kind of guy myself. I don't like lean brisket; it just doesn't work for me. So fatty brisket all the way. And there's a great, most of the people have their very strong opinions of the best barbecue everywhere, but to me, the best barbecue in Central Texas is always out of a trailer. There's just something magical about how trailers do it. It can't be brick and mortar. And I hope it's still there. In South Austin, there was a trailer called Valentina's, and they just mastered the art of fatty brisket. I don't know how they did it. So that'd be my endorsement.
We have a local high-end grocery store, a little nook grocery store, and I got Mr. Stubbs dry rub, years back, right? And then I ended up in Austin, and you're right. The brick and mortars are a little bit more, not touristy, but they're there as a business. So, but still, it was fun to go into Stubbs and get some really good ribs there.
It's really good. You're right.
Great town.
It is.
Town. All right, we got one last minute. Chris, how do people follow you? Do you have a Twitter? Or you have a Twitter handle?
Yeah, so it's at virtual Crazo with an underscore between virtual and Crazo. So at virtual underscore CRAZO. So feel free to hit me up on Twitter, and happy to have conversations and geek out.
All right, Dave.
Yeah, I have a Twitter handle. I never use it, so hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm just Dave Wolpert. Happy to connect.
All right. Awesome. Hey, guys, thanks for carving out an hour of your time to come on the Community Podcast and share what you guys are up to. Great work on the shows. They have gotten better and better. Every time I watch them, I'm like, wow, these are these are maturing and getting something. It's almost like a must see now, right? It's becoming into that cadence of seeing. So thanks a lot for being on the show, and thanks a lot for doing all the good work you do for the ecosystem.
You bet. Thanks, Eric.
Appreciate it.
Have a great day.